Yet here's what we learned about David through the 1 Samuel series. We learned that David is, in many ways, a type of the Messiah. He's somebody who exemplifies a lot of the characteristics and we can learn from to show us who the Messiah is. He wasn't perfect at it, but there's a reason the Messiah is referred to as Son of David. Right? That David is a great example. And so like I did last week, contrasting Saul and Jesus to point us to the true king, in many ways we can do the same thing with David. Since he's the son of David, let's compare David and Jesus. David had a lot more going for him. We didn't compare Saul with anything. We're going to compare some of David with Jesus to learn something about Jesus today because of it. Contrast later, but we'll get to that. But there's something similar first, and Matthew 21 actually showed us that. They both fulfilled prophecy. Both David and Jesus actually fulfilled prophecy. Let's start with David. This is months ago, but do you remember Hannah at the beginning, chapter 2 of 1 Samuel? She prayed to God that he would give his king strength. They didn't have a king yet. They didn't even know they were going to want a king. And she said, give strength to your king, exalt the horn of your anointed. That was eventually fulfilled, not in Saul, but in David. Then think about when Samuel went to Saul after Saul's first rebellion. Samuel looks at Saul and says, Yahweh has sought out a man after his own heart. A phrase used about David over and over. And then later when Samuel actually goes to anoint the next king, he goes to this little village. He has this family. There's 8 sons lined up, and he goes through the first 7. It's none of those guys. The most unlikely one happens to be the one that God looks and says, the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. David. And so David is the fulfillment of prophecy given to show that he's the one. But David, comparatively, was nowhere close to the amount of prophecies that Jesus fulfilled. Hundreds of years before Jesus came on the scene, there were prophecies given that he ended up fulfilling. Now, you can go read this online somewhere. You can read books about this. Scholars actually debate the number of prophecies, because we define prophecy differently at times, that Jesus actually fulfilled. But at a minimum, it's well over 200 specific prophecies that Jesus fulfilled when he showed up and in his life. Sometimes people say up to almost 400 prophecies that Jesus fulfilled. From the Old Testament, hundreds of years before, Jesus filled them out.